Welcome to an information session on the technical electives in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at the University of Arizona. This is for the spring 2014 semester, and I assume you're in the right place if you're here wanting to sit through this. Hopefully we can make it informative. But before we start, what I want you to maybe think about is the following question. Do you know what you're going to do when you grow up? And what does grow up mean, or what time frame are we talking about? If you are considering your entire career path, let's say that you graduate at the end of the spring semester, or maybe at the end of the fall semester in 2014, you may have a career that spans 40 years, maybe. Maybe you're in your low 20s and they don't let you retire until you're 85. Well, that would be more than that, wouldn't it? It would be 60. But if you say 40 years, 2054, do you know what you're going to be doing, or what's going to be the technology that's out there in 2054? I won't be around, but you will be, hopefully. Ooh, that's kind of a scary thought, isn't it? Well, I could be around. Oh, yeah, I'll be around. You can come visit. Remember me? Huh? Why am I doing this? You probably want to make sure that whatever you're doing now is valuable over that 40-year career, meaning you probably want to make sure that some of these hard subjects that might not be very easy for you to pick up on your own, you might try to get the foundation now when you're still young and in school and somebody is helping you work through that material. That's what you want to focus on now, and that might mean that you're looking at a large breadth of topics to choose from. And that's what your technical elective coursework is for, is to try to give you a foundation that will help sustain you through your 40-year career or 40-plus career. That's the goal. If that's the goal, then I'm going to try to help you navigate, meaning let's look at what you have available to take coursework-wise from electrical and computer engineering courses starting with the spring 2014 semester for your technical elective options. These are electives, so you get to pick what you're doing. And let's start, we break these up into general areas of study within the broad range of electrical and computer engineering topics. One of those areas is the computer classes or computer engineering classes. If you think back about what classes you've had in computer engineering, what were some of the numbers of those classes? ECE, what was your first one? 175. What was your second one? 274, 275. What's common to all of those? They're in the 70s, that decade. The other decade that are representative of computer engineering courses are the 60s. If you see numbers, 369, computer engineering, 373, computer engineering, those are the computer related or computer engineering related. We've tried to stick with that, but we've run out of numbers. So sometimes you'll see classes in the computer engineering area that aren't in the 60s and 70s. But some of those that will be available to you, so I start off with an outlier, which is it's not in the 60s or 70s, but it's in the 30s, 330A. And this is for students that are in the EE option. The computer engineering option, that's a core class, ECE 330A. But this is computational techniques. How do you create integration algorithms, or how do you perform computations on the computer effectively or efficiently? That's what you learn in ECE 330. Another one for the students that are outside the computer engineering area, you can take 300 level classes as for your technical electives. You could take computer architecture. If you are in the EE option and you haven't taken that class as one of your core classes. This is now, I guess we've retitled it, haven't we? This is now I don't know. I call it computer architecture, but it's computer organization, I think. Introduction to computer organization. I think we just put, but it's the same class. What? Fundamentals of computer organization or something. It's maybe not entitled computer architecture, but that's what I think of when I say this, but it's basically what are the pieces that make up a computer. And if you want to know the insides of a computer as far as parallel cache, why do we have all this different kinds of pieces or parts that make up the computer, and how do we put those together effectively? That's ECE 369. Another class that I'm sort of putting in with the computer area is 408 508. It's a simulation class, agent-based simulation. And hopefully you know how to find the course descriptions to get a little bit more information. You can find the instructor for those classes and talk to them, and maybe even find the syllabus of some of these classes on our website, most of them at the undergraduate level. And I'm listing this 408/508 because if you're interested in the Accelerated Master's Program, the AMP, you would want to take the 500 version of this class. And so it's possible to take this as a 400 or a 500 level class. Another class that's available to you in the spring semester in the computer engineering area is 466/566, which is essentially another semester of AI, artificial intelligence. This is now knowledge systems engineering. But you don't need ECE 479/579 to take this. This is just a second semester of artificial intelligence type material. That's ECE 466/566. Another class in the computer area is 473/573. That's software engineering concepts. But that's the apps class. If you want to learn how to build apps for a device, that's a class that you might be that might be interesting to you. That's ECE 473/573. Those are the different possibilities. So even if you are in the computer engineering area, you now have 3 classes in the spring semester. The other thing that I should point out is these classes, if they're in the 400s, won't be available in the fall, so don't plan on taking them in the fall semester if you still have another semester after the spring. So plan out, now you need to start planning a year in advance in what you're taking coursework-wise. If you want these classes in the next year, you better take them in the spring of 2014. Now the 300 level, the core, some of those are offered every semester. But if you want to take 408/508, you need to take it in the spring. Is that clear? And that's going to be true for all of this discussion that I'm talking about tonight, is these classes that you're taking or that are possible for technical elective courses you need to be taking in the semester that they're offered. They're not going to be offered every semester. Another area that I'm calling sort of the electronics and bio area, these are classes that deal with numbers in the 50s. If you are in the computer engineering area, then you might want to take device electronics. That's how do you put these semiconductor elements together to make something that might be a diode or a transistor? How do you build these things from the basics? That's device electronics. That's a required class if you're in the electrical engineering option. Another class, and this is where the bio comes in, ECE 417, 517, that's measurements and data of biological systems, or measurement and data analysis of biomedical engineering applications. You actually go into the lab and start using your different electrical instruments to build things. You might build a monitor that monitors your pulse or your blood pressure or maybe your blood oxygenation level. And now you take that data and play with it. And I see students walking up and down the hall instrumented, and now they're collecting data on themselves, and then they'll go into the lab and interpret that data or see if their design worked the way they wanted it to. That's 417, 517. Another class in this electronics bio area is ECE 450, 550. And okay, and this is now analog integrated circuits. If you take this class, though, you need to have completed ECE 304A. 304A is a prerequisite for 450, 550, and that was offered this semester. So that's available for you in the spring. Another one in this general area that I'm collecting in this area, it's really just more for organization purposes than anything, is 451A, 551A, and this is Introduction to Physical Electronics. Or how do charges behave in different environments? In a plasma, in a vacuum, in a solid state device? How do charges, and is there some quantum mechanics? That would be covered in this Introduction to Physical Electronics class, 451A, 551A. That then takes us into the next area of topics, which is electromagnetics and optics, and you might see this abbreviated EMO, and these courses are in the 80s in terms of their numbers. One, if you're in the computer engineering area, then you could take Introduction to Electromagnetics, 381A. And the other classes in this area actually depend on this as a prerequisite. So if you were wanting to take these others, hopefully you've already completed ECE 381A if you want these other classes in the spring of 2014. One of those is if you were interested in solar or photovoltaics. We have a class in that, ECE 414A, 514A. So this is a photovoltaic solar class. You worry about the efficiency of solar devices. How can you enhance that? How might you improve that with different properties or designs in the optical area? Another class is an antenna class. What's the theory behind this? What kind of pattern do you see with a particular design of an antenna? How do you design to maybe achieve a certain pattern for your electromagnetic field as it propagates out into space? Or how do you design an antenna for different devices to be responsive and receptive to different signals that you might be wanting to collect or transmit? Another class that has an even deeper prerequisite structure is 488, 588. And this is microwave engineering 2. The prerequisite to this, which is happening this semester, is microwave engineering 1, which is passive circuit design. This is actually active circuit design, and you might be saying, well, I thought I had circuit design or electric circuits in 320, 320A, but now you're in a different frequency range and you need to treat things differently than these lumped circuit parameters of R's, L's, and C's. Now you may be designing waveguides or different other elements that behave differently than lumped circuit parameters. You now have to think of these as distributed element devices. And how do you do that with an active circuit design? So if that seems interesting and you have time, maybe you haven't started down that path, you could take 381A in the spring and 486, which is microwave engineering 1, in the fall of 2014. And if you're still around, you could take this one in the spring of 2015, hopefully, if everybody is still in play in terms of faculty still on campus and not on sabbatical or something to that effect. That's then the classes in the electromagnetics and optics area specific to ECE. And we have one more area which actually encompasses many more decades than what we've done before. Not that it has any more classes, but it's dealing with the 20s, 30s, and 40s. So it went through the Depression and now it's coming back, into the 40s. But these are now signal processing, communications, and control classes. And in the spring, they're all digital. That's the environment that they're working in. Specifically, you have ECE 429, 529, which is digital signal processing, or maybe you've seen that DSP. That's available to take. If you are taking 340A this semester, you will be ready for the next digital communication class, which is 435A, 535A. So this is now digital communication systems. This one requires not the old school 340, but this now requires ECE 340A that just started in the fall of 13. If you've had the old 340, you can still take 429, 529, or 442, 542. This is now, I said everything was digital. This is digital control systems. Questions on that? And I'm scheduled to teach that one, right? So we're ending on that for the spring. And it does not now, I'm going to try to teach that in a way that does not require you to have already taken an earlier controls class, which used to be required. We used to say you need to have completed 441A/541A. Now we've removed that prerequisite. 442 you can step into after you've taken 340. Yes, you may still see the prerequisites. We're having trouble kind of getting all of those prerequisites removed. Yes. So what's the difference between, so if somebody has taken 340 last semester, the difference now in ECE 340A, 340A this semester is spending at least half of the semester on communications. In the old 340, we essentially went through maybe a lot more analog design. We went through state space, Bode plots. 340A does not do that. Now they start with Fourier series and Fourier transforms for the first half of the semester, roughly, and then they move into communications. AM, radio, FM, and the different modulation strategies or techniques. And 435A, 535A is assuming you've already had this underlying coursework or exposure to the introduction to communication. If you wanted to take 435A, 535A, you could sort of, the material is in your 340 book that you had the old school 340, but you'd have to sort of do some self-studying to get up to speed on the basics of communication. What is AM communication? What is FM communication? What does it mean to be frequency modulated, phase modulated, amplitude modulated, etc.? And understanding the properties of the Fourier transform that allow you to play in that domain of communications. So that's the difference between the 340 now, which is now A, and the old 340. So it really only restricts you in one technical elective, that switch in the curriculum. Other questions? All of those classes then ideally would be in different time slots in the week, but they aren't. So you're going to have to maybe look a little bit if you now were wanting to take, for example, antenna theory 484 and integrated circuits, analog integrated circuits. Or is that the right? For some reason that doesn't sound right. Analog integrated circuits, yeah, 450, 550. Or if you wanted to take digital communications and computational techniques, those you can't take at the same time, obviously, unless you know something that I don't and you can be in two places at once. If you can be, come see me. I want to learn how to do that. But this gives you then a different picture, and I will probably include this in the notes, and I may post these notes online for you to access maybe on my website, my homepage in ECE, and you can then look at this and plan out your day as far as what is or is not available. Now, if you look at this somewhat closely, if you're not taking a core class in the 300 level area, you have your Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays pretty open until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you wanted to have something going on, maybe taking other classes, or if you have a job that you could work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that would be amenable to this layout of courses. We also have, oh, that's the problem I have when I do this prior to being hooked up to the projector, which changes the resolution. But here is what is tentatively scheduled for the fall of 2014. We still have the different areas, but in the computer area, you have, typically we offer a few more technical electives in the fall semester than in the spring semester. But you could essentially start looking at what's happening this semester in the fall of 13 and saying that's probably what will be similar in terms of course offerings for the fall of 2014. The important point is knowing that these aren't offered every semester, and you have to plan a year at a time. And so there's a large number of computer engineering classes. There's similar classes in the electronics area. Now you might have some options in electronics for more manufacturing. These are actually cross-listed with chemical engineering and maybe material science, the 415 and 446. In electromagnetics, we've already talked about the microwave engineering 1. That's with passive circuit elements. We do have some classes that look at these electrical and optical properties of materials. We have a strong program, and several of our faculty are jointly appointed in ECE and optical sciences, and you might want to take advantage of that. One of those, Dr. Kostick, is teaching the 414A, which we talked about in the spring semester, the photovoltaic class. Dr. Potter usually teaches the ECE 434. What are these properties of electrical and optical materials? Or what are the electrical and optical properties of materials? And in signals and systems, you can pick up another controls class, or you can take another class in communications that's optical communications. There you have slightly different interests or issues than what you might have in the digital communication. Questions on technical electives or selection of technical electives? Again, I've put this grid in here. This is what's happening now. It may not quite be the same in the fall of 2014, but you could sort of get a feel for what's going to happen a year from now, if you're still here. Maybe you're all here for the AMP to learn a little bit about I like the name of that, right? The AMP in ECE, very appropriate. The Accelerated Master's Program, abbreviated AMP, we know what AMP is, right? The amps, well, it's not quite used that way here, but the AMP is for students that have a 3.3 or better GPA, and it allows you actually to double count coursework. You can count as many as 4 classes at the undergraduate level and at the master's level. meaning 4 of the classes that you're taking for your bachelor's degree will also count for your master's degree. This allows you to complete your master's degree 1 year after you've finished your bachelor's degree. That's the accelerated master's program. That's the idea. It's designed to be pretty straightforward to get into. There's just the application. You don't have to have letters of recommendation. You don't have to take the GRE exam. You simply have to have completed 75, am I getting the right units? 75 units of undergrad before you apply. Then you can start taking these graduate level classes once you have 90. Okay. So if you have questions for Marissa, you know where to find her, right? Maybe not here. But if you have questions about the AMP, whoops, I thought that was here, but maybe it got erased. And hopefully that won't bounce. But if you're interested in the AMP, you have the GRE waived, which is a savings of maybe $185. You do have an application fee, but you can take in your, basically once you become a senior, that's the 90 plus units. Once you're designated as a senior, you can start taking graduate level classes and counting those as both an undergrad towards your undergraduate degree and your graduate degree. But you can't apply for this after the fact. You can't have taken 414A and say, well, I took 414A. Can I count that as 514A? No. There are different requirements at the 500 level. Even though you're meeting in the same class with undergraduate students, the graduate students are being asked to do a little bit more, which might be a project that the undergraduates don't have to do. Maybe it's more homework throughout the entire semester. Maybe it's extra problems on an exam. Maybe it's a different exam. But the graduate course has a few more requirements than the undergraduate. But you are in the same class as the undergraduates. You meet at the same time. And the graduate classes, typically graduate students put more work into. There's more work required of a graduate class, and we're trying to make sure that students are aware that they can't take 4 graduate classes, a capstone at the undergraduate level, and 2 undergraduate classes all in the same semester. That's not wise. It's not recommended. The ideal would be to take 2 graduate classes in your last 2 semesters of your senior year, but you don't have a real full undergraduate load necessarily together with that. Maybe you do have the capstone, but the capstone together with a couple of graduate classes is a big load. And sometimes maybe you want to front load your graduate classes if you can. Maybe take more of those before you get into your second semester of the capstone. Because we're hearing that in the capstone, the electricals are asked to do a lot, which is a good thing, but you need to make sure you're planning appropriately. That means you're going to be in high demand when you graduate. Yes?
So you basically can't take the 500 level classes until you're a senior, right? So you can't apply for those until your second semester.
So the ideal with the credit hours, the way they've outlined this, the question was you really can't take these until your senior year. That's correct, but some of you probably in units may be a senior when you're a sophomore in standing in ECE, and you could probably get away with maybe, I shouldn't be taping this or recording this, but maybe in your second semester junior, you might have 90 units on the books, and you might be able to squeeze in a grad class at that point. Then take a couple in your fall semester and one more in your spring semester. Again, you're not required to take four. You can take up to four and double count. But you could take two, and that's still two under your belt that you wouldn't have taken otherwise or gotten credit for. The other thing is we are developing an online master's program. It could be that you now get into the AMP, complete four classes while you're here on campus, you graduate with your BS, you now go and work for somebody, and they actually will pay for you to complete your graduate, and you're doing that online remotely. That could maybe happen. So there's a fair amount of flexibility with this program, but if you're interested, you need to start planning early and start thinking how you can organize your courses so that you can be effective in your selection of those four classes that can possibly be counted in both your undergraduate degree program and your graduate degree program. The real requirement is a 3.3 GPA. The graduate school doesn't bend on that, so you have to have a 3.3 or better. You don't have to have a 3.3, it's 3.3 or better. I assumed that was obvious. You don't have to get a few B's to lower your GPA to the 3.3. Don't do that. Keep that GPA high if you can. Did that answer your question? Are there other questions? And I need to try to repeat the questions if you ask, because you probably aren't being heard by the microphone. I think I repeated your question. I don't even remember the question. It's been a long day. Other questions about the AMP or technical electives? Are you feeling a little bit better about what you might choose for your technical electives in the spring after this, or at least maybe you have a little bit better feel? But again, think about a 40-year career, and maybe right now you say, oh, I really like this area in electrical and computer engineering. Yeah, maybe you do right now, but maybe you want to make sure that you're looking a little more broadly than that, because you have a 40-year career and you may not have the luxury of somebody helping you work through the material at this point in time or sometime in the future. So sometimes picking a hard class now that you can't really learn on your own might be a good thing. There may be some material that you will be able to learn on your own, and you'll have to. You need to be able to do that. That's why we're trying to get you to that point. But the more you learn now in a more broad setting, probably the better off you will be in the future. Yes?
Uh, if for the spring semester, the system and control content concept is now the digital one, what about the full?
What about what about the fall semester? So the question was, it looks like in the signals and systems area, the the classes are all have a digital in the title. That's fine. But in the 442, 542 in the control, since I'm not requiring, or we're not requiring, a prerequisite of analog control, I somehow have to get you up to speed a little bit in that area, even though it says digital. So you will be starting to see some differential equations, which is analog or continuous time, and how do you convert that into and start playing with discrete time systems and controllers. So you'll get some analog there. But in the fall semester, it's analog or continuous time control, and it's optics. It's optical communication, which is not necessarily digital, but you may use some digital techniques. But there's not the digital theme or focus in the fall semester in the signal and systems area. That answer your question? Other questions? And if you don't have any now or you don't and you think of some tonight, Marissa is here during the day, not now, but during the day, Marissa is available. You can email me. We can try to work these things out and get you comfortable with your selection of technical elective courses in the next semester and semesters thereafter. Other questions? If not, I'll let you escape. Thank you for coming. You didn't have to come, did you? But I hope this time was somewhat well spent for you. And let me know if you do have questions.